What keeps standing out to me about everything surrounding Selena Gomez lately isn't any single rumor or clip, but how quickly ordinary human moments get transformed into dramatic conclusions once they pass through the internet. When you watch these videos back slowly, without commentary layered on top, what you actually see are fragments of everyday behavior that have been elevated into proof of something being wrong. And I think that says more about how we consume celebrity narratives now than it does about Selena or Blanco themselves. Because the truth is, most of what people are reacting to are pauses, hesitations, quiet moments, and physical changes that would barely register if they belonged to someone outside the spotlight. A lot of the current discussion starts with Blanco appearing distant or disengaged in public, especially in those viral street clips and the Lakers game moment where Selena reaches for his hand and there's a brief delay before he responds. I understand why that clip made people uncomfortable. We're conditioned to expect couples, especially newly married ones, to move in sync, to anticipate each other effortlessly, to perform closeness almost instinctively. So when that rhythm feels slightly off, it creates tension. But what I don't think gets talked about enough is how unnatural public environments are. Walking through crowds, cameras flashing, people shouting names, security pushing you forward, all while trying to remain polite and present, is not a relaxed or intimate setting. Missing a hand gesture in that context doesn't automatically translate to emotional neglect. Sometimes it just means your attention is split in too many directions at once. That said, the reason this moment stuck isn't just because of Benny. It's because it landed at a time when Selena already feels emotionally exposed to the public. She's been more open than ever about her health, her limitations, and how her body responds to stress. When someone is visibly vulnerable, people start scanning everything around them for signs of support or lack thereof. So the hand-holding moment became symbolic, not factual. It stopped being about what actually happened and started representing people's fears that Selena is carrying too much on her own. Her health has been central to this entire conversation, whether people acknowledge it respectfully or not. Selena has lived with lupus for years, and she's been transparent about how it affects her daily life, from joint pain to inflammation to fatigue. More recently, she addressed something that people had been whispering about for a long time: her voice. Instead of ignoring the speculation, she explained that sometimes her throat swells internally, which can change how she sounds and how comfortably she can speak. That explanation was calm and straightforward, but the reaction to it showed how uncomfortable people are with illness when it disrupts their expectations. Rather than accepting her words, many people doubled down on comparison. Old clips were resurfaced. Interviews from a decade ago placed side by side with newer ones, as if a human body should remain unchanged through chronic illness, medication, stress, and aging. Her slower speech, deeper tone, and longer pauses were treated like a mystery that needed solving, instead of a reality that needed understanding. And what really bothered me reading through those reactions was how easily empathy gets replaced with entitlement. People feel owed a version of Selena that exists only in their memory. The viral interview clip where she appears to freeze for a few seconds is a perfect example of this. To me, it looked like someone listening intently, processing a question before responding. But online, it became evidence of something being wrong, as if silence itself is suspicious. We live in a culture where constant animation is expected, especially from women in the public eye. If you're not smiling, nodding, reacting instantly, you're labeled distant, medicated, disconnected, or worse. That expectation leaves no room for people who are thoughtful, tired, cautious, or simply human. What makes this harder is that Selena doesn't just deal with physical illness. She's also been open about her mental health, including bipolar disorder. Even though bipolar disorder doesn't directly affect speech in the way people speculate, the medications, the emotional regulation, and the self-awareness that come with managing it absolutely influence how someone presents themselves. Speaking more carefully, moving more deliberately, and choosing restraint over spontaneity can be survival tools, not symptoms. She's also talked about arthritis in her fingers caused by lupus, something that sounds small until you imagine the frustration of not being able to open a water bottle without pain. That experience shaped how she built her beauty brand, intentionally designing products that are easier to open and use. That detail matters to me because it shows how deeply her health informs her decisions. This isn't someone detached from her reality, it's someone adapting to it in real time. And yet, despite all this openness, Selena still gets comments about her skin, her face, her mouth, her expressions. Acne, melasma, discoloration, stress breakouts, things that affect millions of people, become talking points when they appear on her. Even during live streams meant to connect with fans, she's asked invasive questions about her appearance that no one should have to answer. The fact that she responds with patience instead of defensiveness says a lot about her emotional strength, but it doesn't make the questions any less exhausting. All of this creates the backdrop against which her marriage is being judged. When Selena is seen alone at the airport, it's framed as loneliness rather than logistics. Benny's absence becomes a sign of neglect instead of a known fear of flying. Context gets stripped away because it doesn't fit the narrative people want to build. Being alone in public doesn't mean being unsupported in private, but the internet rarely distinguishes between the two. The street clip where Benny appears focused on his phone while Selena talks sparked a similar reaction. People described it as dismissive, uncomfortable, and emotionally cold. And while I understand why it didn't look great, I also think it's dangerous how quickly we assign intent to behavior without knowing what happened before or after the camera started rolling. 10 seconds of footage can't show the full dynamic of a relationship, especially one navigating fame, schedules, health challenges, and constant observation. Benny's response to the backlash was brief and dismissive, pointing out that it was just a 10-second clip. That may be true, but it also left a vacuum where reassurance could have been. Silence isn't guilt, but it also isn't clarity, and when public figures choose not to elaborate, speculation fills the gap. That's not always fair, but it is predictable. At the same time, Selena has been dealing with a different kind of scrutiny online, with people accusing her of editing or manipulating photos from a holiday trip. What struck me about that wasn't the accusations themselves, but how distrustful audiences have become. A simple vacation photo can't just exist as a moment anymore, it has to be interrogated for authenticity. Shadows, angles, lighting, even music choices become evidence in some imagined trial. And if it turns out nothing was altered, the damage is already done, because the assumption of deception lingers. Some of the comments directed at Selena and Benny go far beyond critique and into outright hostility, calling them dirty, neglected, toxic, or suggesting they don't even live together. That kind of language isn't concern, it's projection. It says more about the commenter's feelings than about the couple's reality. And it's especially unsettling when directed at someone who has already shared how deeply criticism affects her mental health. What I keep coming back to is how much control people want over Selena's story. They want her to look a certain way, sound a certain way, love a certain way, and heal on a timeline that feels comfortable to them. Any deviation is treated as a problem, but growth doesn't look clean. Healing doesn't look glamorous, and relationships don't always perform well on camera. There's also the lingering shadow of her past relationship with Justin Bieber, which refuses to fade despite years passing and lives moving forward. Hailey Bieber's recent post celebrating 10 new years together reignited old debates about timelines, overlaps, and rewritten history. Whether intentional or not, these moments keep Selena tied to a narrative she's clearly outgrown. And yet, she's still dragged into it, compared, contrasted, and positioned as a reference point instead of a person with her own present reality. When I look at Selena now, I don't see someone falling apart. I see someone who has slowed down because she had to. Someone who has learned that survival sometimes means choosing calm over charisma. Someone who is still showing up, still creating, still sharing pieces of herself even when the response is harsh. And I think that's what makes people uncomfortable. A woman who doesn't perform pain the way it's expected, who doesn't package vulnerability neatly, who exists in between strength and fragility without apologizing for either. As for her marriage, I think it's easy to forget that public visibility doesn't equal emotional truth. A relationship can look awkward on camera and still be deeply supportive off screen. It can look quiet and still be strong. Or it can look perfect and be falling apart. We don't know. And pretending we do based on fragments only reinforces the illusion that we're entitled to every answer.